Welcome, friends. This is a Lunch and Learn with Bauman Wellness. It's August 11th, 23. And we're so happy to have Charles Lev with us today. Charles, a dear friend of mine, colleague for over 20 years. Charles is a remarkable holistic healer, acupuncturist, professor, instructor at Oregon State Health Sciences and Evergreen. So we have a really special presentation today on the use of essential oils. We're going to get into really the depth and the backstory of how essential oils have come to be and how they can be applied. So welcome, Charles.
Thank you, Ed. Nice to be with you as always, and grateful to be able to share a topic that's really dear to my heart. I'm going to try to do like a 2-hour lecture in 1 hour, so I'm going to dive in quick and deep and present something I really care a lot about, which is bringing the magic of plants into our lives in a really unique way. Essential oils are the essences of the botanical jewels of our planet, and placing these droplets on acupuncture points is one of my many favorite ways of working with them. That'll be the heart of what we dive into today. I want to begin, and throughout the whole conversation, like we get these essential oils that show up on the shelves of stores in bottles, but what they are and how they relate to plants and how they relate to where they come from and how to work with them is what I want to really dive into here. Beginning with just explaining how essential oils come to be essential oils. We take all sorts of botanical material, leaves, roots, flowers, and we put them into a distillery process where we expose them to steam. That steam passes through cold water and condenses, and then comes into another vessel where the oil rises to the top. As you can see here, we get a fragrant water, which is often called a hydrosol. And then the oil rises to the top and floats on the water. You can see the two spigots on this little vessel on the bottom right there. And the oil rises to the top and is drained off the top. And that is the magic of how an essential oil is made. There's lots of different ways that it can be done, but it's been done essentially through this basic process as long as we've had essential oils. People do it in their home. This is a pressure cooker and a mason jar method with copper piping. But I've had friends succeed. Here's another home skill with a little flair and fun about it. The first record of essential oils is done in Spain in the 12th century by an Islamic medicine scholar and mystic. At the height of the Al-Andalusian magic of Islamic Spain, when people of all faiths were really working together and there was a lot of sharing. And our first record of essential oils comes out of this period and quickly spreads all over the world. Aromatics go way, way, way back. The Egyptians did a lot with aromatics. It's believed that the person here is holding 2 vessels of oils in her hands, but they weren't steam distilled. People often say it all goes back to the Egyptians, and there's some truth in that. The Egyptians did a lot with aromatics, a lot of distilling plants through fats and heat, but not steam distilling them. We can see 16th century English actual essential oil production here from a woodblock carving. We're in Mediterranean, Central Asia here. All over the world, people have been doing this for centuries. My biggest teacher, colleague, friend, supplier in all of this has been my friend Peter Holmes. He was born in Vienna to parents who were involved in the founding of the UN. He lived internationally all through his childhood and was used to becoming a world traveler. And as he got into holistic medicine, one of his deep interests has been traveling the world and finding small productions, family-owned, artisan-made, steam-distilled essential oils. And he's been a dear friend and colleague and teacher of mine. And I'll be referencing his work. This is his magnum opus, his big book about essential oils. I wrote the foreword to this book about 10 years ago. I've been deeply involved in his journey for a long time, and I want to just dive right into how I've related to the oils a lot through Peter's work. He's been my principal teacher and supplier. This is Peter in Bulgaria, stalking local wild, not wild, these are cultivated, I'm sorry, but local family-owned, reasonably small-scale production of high-quality rose oil. Bulgaria has long been a center of production of rose, in the heart of Eastern Europe. They have a rose festival every year. The essence of the rose is big in their national pride and big in their culture. And Peter sought out the damask rose, which is one of the most famous, beloved roses. I have a bottle in front of me here. And here we have Peter in the fields. He helped out a little bit with picking, but he didn't want to take the work away from the people who were doing the actual work. And here we see the rose petals all gathered after a big gathering day. And we're going to actually see the process of making the oils in what's actually rather small to mid-sized production. All the flower petals are gathered and put into the still. And then you can see here the oil being drained off the top, just as you saw in the drawing. So I'd like to just take a moment, and we'll go sort of one oil at a time. Rose is such a good one, I think, to start with. I'm talking to you from Portland, Oregon, which we call the City of Roses. We have a huge rose garden here. I think rose is one of those things. We think about Valentine's Day. We think about sending our heart with roses in the language of flowers and the language of love. Rose stands in a really unique position. And when we think about the properties of rose as a story and as a fragrance, it goes right to the heart, and it opens up our heart, and it expresses really love like no other flower. So we often want to apply an oil like that to, when we think about acupuncture points and we think about the oils, there's points on the wrist and hand that we say open up the heart and the chest, and there's points on the actual heart and chest. And we can learn some acupuncture points that I'll do that, but I also want to say that you can use your own intuition. Like any points around the sternum and around the upper chest, any points around the inside of the arms are some of the most classic places to put an essential oil. And what we're going to learn to do here is just to open up a bottle. I mentioned in the intro, if you have oils of your own, bring them to the class. I don't know that I can hear everyone, but if you have an oil with you that's rose or that is any flower, the jasmines or the lavenders are good allies of rose. You can smell that. I like to take a single drop. One thing I'll say about applying oils is you really don't want to touch the dropper, but let the drop fall on your hand. Put it on both hands, and then you want to bring it to both nostrils to get both hemispheres of the brain, left and right, all connected, several inches from the nose. And then you can apply it anywhere on the chest. I want to start bringing the acupuncture points. So if we want to do acupressure with rose oil, one of my favorites is this point, lung 1. And to find lung 1, we touch our collarbones. This is strange. I've never done this online, and I've always done it where you can actually smell the oil in person, but we can get somewhere like this. So if you follow the collarbone along all the way to the far edge of it, as you move out towards the shoulders and then drop below the collarbone, there's sort of a divot in this area where there's just a lot of energy. The top of the pec muscle, right at the far lateral shoulder-wise edge of the collarbone, drop down and just feel into there. It's often a little bit tender, and it can really wake up some emotions in people. I've had people cry. You can use 2 fingers, you can use a thumb, you can use 1 finger, and the recommendation is just making circles. And just like in this picture, you can do this for yourself, or you can do this for a friend, a sweetheart, a family member, a patient. This can be great self-care, great family care. And this is a beautiful way to connect with our emotional bodies. We're all going through lots of stress at various points. And this is a great way to bring in some real sweetness. It's so simple. A simple drop in your fingers, finding a spot on the body, making some circles, breathing. There's lots of ways we can affect our consciousness during a busy day. We grab a cup of coffee, we grab a glass of water. This is a really simple, effortless, positive way to bring in some really positive energy into our day and into our lives. So the different acupuncture points all have a different energy as to the different oils. And combining them together is just a beautiful way of allowing an effortlessly simple moment of self-care. And the deeper you dive into this, different oils, different points, there's a lot to learn and a lot of ways to play. And as long as you're using an oil that can go on the skin, you're safe. I'll pause right now, see if there's any questions, any comments.
I love that using it topically on the points. I really love that.
It is so simple and so easy and so deep at the same time. I mean, it's not much. You put a drop on your finger, you touch a spot. You could teach an 8-year-old to do this. We should, it'd be great in the classrooms when kids are dysregulated. Great in our own families when we just need a moment to chill. So you could do it in a second, and it really shifts things.
Perfect self-care practice.
We have one question from Nicole in the chat. Any recommendations on selecting quality oils versus in-store selections?
Yep, I have some real thoughts on that, and my last slide is all about that. I'm going to save it for the end. I have some. I'll put up websites and share that. I'm going to talk about sourcing and quality. It's super important. Thank you.
Great. And then Helga writes in the chat, is it not true that essential oils should not be applied undiluted to skin?
So if you can go online, there's the term neat, like you could drink whiskey neat, which means without ice. You can apply an oil neat if it's appropriate. And most of the essential oils can be applied neat. Some of them need to be placed in a carrier oil. So like I have some that'll say 10% dilution. And then when we put 10% oil and 10% something like jojoba oil, almond oil, those are classic choices, then you have it in a state where it can be applied to the skin. I would say 80% of the oils can be applied directly to the skin without any issues. And about 20% of them need to be diluted in a carrier, and they can't be applied neat. And you can look into that. There's a lot of great information on websites all over the world. But that's the term you want to use, can. And then there are some strange ones, like my boys react to the citrus oils, both of them. A lot of people can put a dot of citrus on their skin, the grapefruit or the bergamot or the lemon, the lime. I have boys who, for whatever reason, react to that. And just like some people can do dairy, some people can do soy, and some people can't. There are personal skin sensitivities that lie outside the norm.
Thank you. And then Michael asks, do you particularly recommend damask rose oil, or are others fine?
All the roses are wonderful. That's a favorite. You can go into a rose garden. Every rose has a slightly different vibe. And it's really fun to tune into that. Damask rose is a favorite, but it's certainly not. Every rose is awesome. And, there are some that don't have much fragrance, and people don't make oils out of them. But if and rose is one of the ones that's the most commonly synthetically adulterated. And there's a lot of synthetic rose being sold as natural, which is not the real deal. And that smells kind of saccharine and awful. So it's important to get. It hits me hard and fast when I get around synthetic rose, and I just ugh. And a lot of people say they don't like rose oil because they've only been exposed to synthetic. Because a large portion of what's out there on the market, it'll say natural essence, but it's not a true therapeutic essential oil. And I'll get into that at the end as well.
Quick question, and you don't have to answer it. We have a yard full of blooming roses right now. They're going to last a few days, maybe a week, and then they're going to be done.
Yeah.
Is it something that we could gather and create some level other than just putting them in the pot and breathing over the pot, which is simple, but
right. I mean, there's nothing like enjoying the roses. It's one of those great poetic things in life. It's there, and then it's gone. We can draw. You can take some. I like to let them go through their cycle, and it's fun to gather some of them and pull off all the petals and place them on a screen so they dry really evenly. And then you've got a bag of dried rose petals, which makes great tea.
Yeah.
It makes a great steam distillation for your face.
Yeah.
Just the dried petals, but the best way to do that is like an even stretched out screen and scatter them all in one layer and dry them in kind of, a not too hot of a place, and they'll dry really nicely. And then you can put them all in a bag and save them for the season. That you could steam distill, turn into a tea, turn into a facial steam, or whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to keep moving forward here. I'll take more questions again.
Yeah.
So I want to, throughout the presentation, I'll pause and pull back to another level and describe, like I will with quality and selection. And right now I want to talk about issues of understanding the oils. And most people who explore plants through essential oils begin talking about top notes, heart notes or middle notes and bottom notes or base notes. So you can think about things that smell rooty and earthy and woody and deep are our base notes, and they really do ground us, and they hit us in our lower body, our lower chakras, if you will. The middle notes tend to get us kind of heart and chest, like rosemary, the flowers, we'll talk about ylang ylang. And then the top notes, lavender here is right on that edge. The citrusy things and the really green things hit sort of the head, clear the mind, and can get sort of the upper heart and the chest. Most really balanced blends have a little of all three. And not everybody classifies them exactly the same way. We can debate certain ones. You know, is this kind of a top middle or a bottom middle? Usually they kind of stagger two of the levels. So it's nice just to think about that sort of citrusy, herbaceous, mind-clearing top note, that middle note that's a lot of the sweet floral stuff, some of the spicy stuff, and then we get really that earthy, woody, deeper base note. That's a great way to just think about the oils. So that said, I'm going to dive into some oils with base notes, and we're going to talk about frankincense, vetiver, sandal, and cedar woods. Frankincense has long been one of the great, sacred, beloved plants of the world and one of the great essential oils. It comes from the Horn of Africa and southern Arabia, where the frankincense trees grow. And you can see them here in their natural habitat. These are frankincense trees. And this is
I'm not seeing your screen. I'm seeing you, Charles.
Really?
Which I like. I like hearing you talk and seeing you. It's okay if I don't see the pictures.
Interesting. Well, you were seeing the screen before, weren't you?
Absolutely.
And it disappeared?
Well, right now we're on person view, not shared screen view.
Oh. So all I can see still is my my slides.
I actually like seeing you talk. It's fine.
Yeah, but I got some pretty important.
I know. There's images too.
I wonder if I say stop sharing.
Yeah, we'll stop and start.
Back into the laptop and say share screen, entire screen, click on the screen, share the screen.
Yeah, it's up now. It's coming up.
I'll go into here and press play. Are we back?
Yeah, it's coming up. Now there's pictures. Thank you.
Got it. So you can see the frankincense plant here. And like I was saying, it comes from, can you see the Horn of Africa and southern Arabia?
Yeah.
So this is where frankincense grows. And you can see the plant here in its natural habitat. And you can see the dried sap of the tree. People chew this like gum all over the world.
Oh, yeah.
You also can cook it, throw it in a pot of rice. It makes an amazing thing. So people actually go around and score the outside of the tree to make the sap weep out. And then give it a few weeks, and the sap just weeps out of the tree, and that's what gets dried. This is a drawing of people doing that. It's been done this way for centuries. The ancient Egyptians burned a boatload of frankincense, not as essential oils, but as fragrance offering. In our stories, we know that the three wise men who come to the baby Jesus bring frankincense.
That's right.
And we see it burned in churches all over the world. When the ancient temple of the Hebrews stood in Jerusalem, frankincense was one of the main ingredients of the incense that was burned. I have a dear colleague and friend who lives in Israel who's done it's kind of an Indiana Jones story. They unearthed a vial of that incense, and he went ahead and started to make an essential oil blend at the ratios of what was burned in Jerusalem at the time. You can go to his website, avaroma.com. He's one of my many suppliers and a very...
You said, I'm sorry, what about Lemon Grove in your vehicle?
Someone's got to mute themselves who just popped in, please. Go ahead, Charles.
We see frankincense in Buddhist temples all over the world. So it really transcends culture as a plant. I like to call it the rainbow bridge to kind of connect heaven and earth. It brings in sacred, bright, cleansing energy, and people have recognized that in cultures all over the world. I'm an acupuncturist. We call it Ru Shang in Chinese, and we use it actually to move stuck blood. It's the blood moving to stop pain. So when you think about the properties of frankincense, I think the biggest thing is that it transcends cultures all over the world as a way of bringing that sacred, divine presence energy in a very strong way. When we want to apply it to the body, one of my favorite places, I encourage you to take off your shoes if you're wearing shoes and find this point. I can't quite get my foot in screen view, but I'm touching that point right now. And just like we did, my frankincense here, with the rose, you could just take a single drop and get it on your finger. I just did the no-no of touching my dropper for a second. It's a thick one, it takes a while. So frankincense can take a while to come out. And rubbing circles on this point right in the ball of the foot. And you can think about this point, we're talking about the rooty, earthy bass notes. This point is down here at the roots. So one of the core takeaways, like we talked about a higher note, a middle note with the rose, here we are with a bass note down at the bottom of the body. So there's a synergy between the location of the point and the energetics of the oil. And it just feels good to rub this point, period. And placing an oil on it is amazing. It's really nice to get it's like it's nice to get the fragrance in both nostrils. It's really good to get the pressure on both feet. So whether or not you have oils with you, I encourage you to tune into this point right now. And you could use other oils here. And there's a little more than 360 acupuncture points. It's a lifetime of study. But you can also just use your intuition. You can place this over your whole foot, over your whole ankle, and just rub your feet with it. So I'm going to dive into another bass note that's beloved all over the world, sandalwood. There's sandalwood that's been gathered. Here's people processing it for gathering. These are all from Peter Holmes' slides, the places that he's worked with. Here's the sandalwood being distilled. Here's the sandalwood being grown on a plantation where they just keep planting and growing instead of harvesting it in the wild. There's a lot of issues with sustainability in oils. And it's really important to support places that are harvesting respectfully. Sandalwood is a lot less in the world, and I have been using cedar wood more and more. I still love sandalwood. They're really similar. And there's cedar all over North America that is a lot more widely available and being harvested very sustainably. And they're quite similar. Here's nice. I'm actually going to take out the cedar here and put a couple of drops of that on my feet while I'm talking. It's one of the nice things about this work. Oh, is that you can take in the fragrance, shift your awareness, even while you're sitting at the table with your family and friends. You pass the bottle around and rub points together. Mm. Another great, deep, earthy, rooty base note oil that I use a lot of is vetiver. It's the root of a grass that is beloved and deep and earthy and very grounding and settling. So when we're feeling like there's just too much up, which I think a lot of us go through these days, vetiver will just really root us down. And there it is, it's a root. And as a root, it grounds us. The biggest producer of vetiver in the world is Haiti. It grows all over the Caribbean. It grows in other parts of the world, but Haiti outproduces the whole world for vetiver. This is the world's largest vetiver farm in Haiti. It is commercially used a lot by the perfume and cologne industry. And they really, there's some real human rights issues and some real land use issues around some of the larger producers. You can see them literally just tearing up the earth here, growing lots of it and ripping it out in a large scale industrial production. This is the people that Peter Holmes Snow Lotus, my teacher and friend. This is a small family-owned operation where they're doing it out of their own family's land and gathering it and planting it and keeping it going every year, planting the same fields over and over and nourishing them. And you can see a guy dressed in his own comfortable clothes with a smile on his face. And that's one of the things I love about Peter's work is that he's trying to find producers all over the world that are doing it at a small scale. Most of the oils done all over the world, this is going to steer our conversation into those earlier questions, are being used by big fragrance, flavoring, and coloring industries. For things that smell exactly the same every single time, there's a ton of vetiver in Chanel. It's one of the largest ingredients. And they're producing in massive scales. These are industrial steam distillation processes. So we can see that of all the plants that are steam distilled, most of it's going to fragrance and flavor on the left there, and aromatic chemicals, and about 12% to actually essential oils world over. You can see just where in the world that's all being consumed, mostly by coloring, flavoring, and fragrance industry. So, when you see natural flavors or artificial flavors in all sorts of ingredients, that's those big industrial factories going into all sorts of fragrance and all sorts of flavoring of almost everything you can imagine. And they don't particularly care for the quality of the oil. They're going to process it and then add things to it and chemically alter it so it smells exactly the same way every single time. They'll add a little of this, add a little bit of that until they get the spectrum to be identical so that it's the same every single time. So that your Starburst always tastes the same and your Chanel always smells the same. So we can talk about the different grades of oils. There's synthetic oils that are the most commonly out there, and they've been lab altered to make sure that they smell exactly the same at the top there. And they're really not therapeutic grade oils. And there's lots of extended or altered oils where they'll take a vanilla and they'll add some of this and some of that, which is also not a therapeutic oil. And there's some decent ones that are natural or even certified organic, but they're sometimes not that focused on how they're harvested or how we want to see a low pressure, long time, low temperature steam distillation that gets the full spectrum of the whole oil out there. And there's a lot of natural ones that just aren't distilled that well. And the therapeutic grade oils are medicinally steam distilled where they do a low pressure, long time, lower heat steam distillation that allows the full range of all the chemicals to come out in the extraction process. So there are synthetic oils, extended oils, natural oils, and then truly therapeutic grade oils. And I think if we're going to do work of this nature, where we're anointing points and trying to heal and support ourselves, then it's really important to use a therapeutic grade oil. And I will be sharing some sources for that. But I want to get the notion out there that there's a ton of oils even sold at natural food stores that are basically bottled up versions of that stuff that was originally made for the fragrance and flavoring industry that they're just selling as essential oil, but it's not a therapeutic grade. I think it's important to get educated so we make wise choices if we want to do healing work with the oils. The plants can be wild collected, and some of them are brought out in the wild. They can be grown cooperatively or on small scale plantations or on large scale plantations, or they can be the byproduct of some other thing like the timber industry or some other industry where there's things that are being, like lemon peels that are discarded or wood that's being discarded that can then be steam distilled. A lot of complexity to think about. We can't get all to it in an hour, but we can get to some of the main issues. So again, as I was saying before, those base note oils like vetiver, like frankincense, like sandalwood and cedarwood are really well suited for the feet, the ankles, the legs, the belly, the low back, the lower half of the body is a beautiful place. Can you see my face as well as the screen right now?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So working with the lower part of the body, rubbing your whole feet, rubbing your whole ankles, like it's great to use the specific acupuncture points. And there's a lot of freedom here. You can rub your whole foot, you can rub your whole ankle, you can rub your child, you're tucking them into bed, your sweetheart, your friend, whatever it is. Those base note oils are really great on the lower half of the body, the low back, the sacrum, the lower abdomen, the legs, the ankles, the feet. So again, that resonance of the base note oil, the lower part of the body, pretty simple and intuitive. So we'll get into another acupuncture point here, and I'm going to take out a bottle of vetiver. This is that grass that we saw. This is that man with the machete smiling in Haiti. This is actually from his family farm, and it's hard to get my foot in the screen view, but I want to point out some things that are noteworthy in this slide. So you can see the hand there. If you put your pinky on the point at the top of the inner ankle bone, that's called the medial malleolus or the inner ankle bone. If you place your pinky right on the peak of that mountain, and then you just let your whole hand fall on the slide that says 12 meridian in green, you can see the outline of the hand doing the same thing the one is below it. You place the pinky at the peak of the mountain on the inner ankle bone, and then just let the whole hand fall on the ankle. And right in the middle of the leg, just spot in the middle, you can feel the the tibia, the big bone in your leg there. And you can see kind of that bone outline. You fall just inside the bone. Your finger just naturally falls there. It's this point spleen 6. And you can just slide up about a hand's width to the middle of your ankle there and just feel around to the spot that feels good. And you're doing fine. Your body knows what to do with this. So I'm going to take the vetiver, pour a drop on my index finger. Vetiver's a little viscous. If you have oils at home, you can use any of the thicker ones for the lower body here. I'll take that and I'll just place it on the point and make little circles. It feels really good. And then I'll pick the oil up and smell it. And rubbing it. Oh, so earthy and descending. It's like leaves, soil, clay. I mean, this is a simple mind-altering medicine to bring us into a more harmonious state of being. You just rub that point, little circles. And if there's other spots, like I'm now going back to kidney 1 and holding it at the same time. You can hold 2 points at once. It's kind of like playing music or dancing. It's nice to know how to harmonize and how to get a groove going, but there's a lot of freedom to experiment. I'll pause again and see if there's any thoughts or questions. It's a good time to just circle up and see if folks want to connect.
No, I think this is really helpful, and it's nice to get a directional on the foot, on the hand, on the torso, and just use our own guidance in terms of what level, lower, middle, upper, that we want to work with and start to play with it. Because when you play with it, you start to make your own decisions rather than read an instruction guide that says do this for that.
So that's a great comment, Ed, and I'll riff with you. So you can see on the right there in pink where it says acupuncture point of the week. And you can go all over. There's lots of books on the functions and the powers of the acupuncture points, and none of them tell the whole story. But it's interesting to look at this whole list of menstrual problems, infertility, impotence, edema, swollen ankles, digestive problems, poor sleep, headaches, or dizziness. So, I mean, all of those instances, we're talking about grounding and settling energy. Mm-hmm. The overall function of this point is to pull energy down and harmonize the flow of energy in the body. And it is wonderful for regular menstruation. And it's wonderful for guys with fertility problems, women with fertility problems, digestive problems, headaches, too much energy up, dizziness, too much unbalanced energy up. All of this is about balancing and pulling energy to the roots, to the base of the body. So I think thinking about the positive, rather than talking about what are the symptoms this treats, and that's a helpful short list. What is the positive force of this point? And it's to balance and harmonize and ground and bring energy down. I'll give one caution here. This point is widely used to bring on contractions for labor and delivery if someone is having a hard time getting into labor. And because of that, we also say avoid this point in the first couple trimesters of pregnancy if someone has the possibility of miscarrying. I think people maybe overstate that because there are instances where acupuncturists can safely use this point while someone's in the first couple trimesters. But in general, there's a notion of best be really careful. And if you don't really know what you're doing, avoid this point when someone's in the first couple trimesters, the first 6 months of pregnancy, because it does bring energy down. And if someone has a loose hold on their pregnancy, there's the possibility of bringing on a miscarriage. So I just want to say when we're playing with this stuff, it is for real. And it does bring energy down. And it's not going to cause a miscarriage in someone that's got a strong pregnancy, but it's been known to take someone that's threatening miscarriage and move it in that direction. So that's the one, other than topical oils and how to be careful on the skin, as far as the acupuncture points. It's a very popular point. People use it all the time. And that's the one caution that I'll throw out there at this point. And I'll pause again for any questions on that.
So there was a question about, do they list therapeutic grade on the bottles of essential oils?
Yeah, they often do say that. I think the most important thing is to really get with your community and your hive mind and find out which suppliers are for real with that. Some of them do say that, and it tends to be true. But I think it's important to just check in with some people and find out about some good suppliers. I'm going to put 4 that I trust up at the end and talk about that
Can
more.
you
And
just mention a couple of them now in case people aren't here at the very end?
The one that, I'm totally biased because I wrote the foreword to his book, and he's a dear friend. But I think you can look the world over and you'll be hard pressed. This is Snow Lotus.
Snow Lotus.
Yeah, snow like the snowfall in the winter, and lotus like the lotus flower. Snowlotus.org. I'll put up the website at the end. That's my friend Peter, whose slides I've been sharing. Yeah. He's kind of an accidental merchant. He's a teacher and a writer, first and foremost. And he's selling mostly to his students. His stuff is in very few stores. And he keeps his prices really low because he considers his clients to be his students and his colleagues.
That's great.
And he's also working to support, like I said, artisans, small producers all over the world. So I'm definitely going to highlight and star that, although I don't want to make this like, an advertisement for my friend's company, because there's other great oils out there. And I buy oils from all sorts of places, but I keep coming back to Peter's oils because I can't beat his prices or his quality or his deep sensitivity for finding really quality producers. So that's my favorite, but I'll put 3 others up that I also have deep confidence in. Okay. As we wind down here. Let's get into lavender, probably the most popular of all the essential oils. We'll talk about the essential oil of lavender here. A lot of the great lavender comes from the Mediterranean, and a lot of the best lavender comes from the south of France. This is Provence, France, which is probably the lavender production capital. It's so beautiful to see those fields all purple. Here's the lavender coming out of the still from Peter's folks, where he buys his lavender. Here's the spent flowers all being lifted out of the still. Pretty amazing to see. You'll see amazing lavender from Italy, from Spain, from all the southern portions of the North Mediterranean, from Turkey. You can see Bulgaria again on the map there, but a lot of the most famous lavender does come from France. The whole southern region of the north coast of the Mediterranean is the heart of it. Although it's grown all over the world, you can grow it in your yard all over America. Those are just the big producers. And when we think about the properties of lavender, it is so calming. It's cool. We could put lavender right on a burn. I read a great research article recently that you could take a first, second, or third degree burn and pour straight unadulterated lavender essential oil right on that burn, and it cools it off better than almost anything. And it cools our spirit, and all the things that are hot and bothered in us just get chilled out and pieced out and soothed by lavender like nothing else. I want to talk about a point that I love to put lavender on the back of the neck. Got my lavender bottle from Peter right here. And again, I will let a couple of drops fall out without touching the dropper. Put them on both fingers. And this point is on the nape of the neck, just in those 2 spots that you find on the occipital groove there. You just you can put it on the whole hairline and you'll do just fine. But your fingers tend to naturally fall into the spots you can see in that picture. You can do this with someone lying down or sitting. You can do it for yourself. It says headache points there. And once again, that's highlighting a single symptom. This is a great point for just clearing the mind. If you need to write, you need to think, you need to get work done. And again, smelling the oil, oh man, it's amazing. That one can bring me close. This is a particularly sweet, like some lavender is a little bit edgy and harsh. This one is like honey. It is so round and soft. This one's actually Peter's Bulgarian lavender. He's got more than one lavender in his offerings. From Snow Lotus. And again, even just 30 seconds, 5 seconds of rubbing a point with an oil, smelling the oil, just brings us back home again. So this is acupressure with a point known as gallbladder 20. Great for headaches, great for just clearing the mind, for smoothing things out, for we have just too much going on. And lavender is one of my favorites. It's often called a top note, sometimes a top middle note. For just opening all of this up and clearing things. bring clarity, bring peace. I guess I'll do a quick pause. We got about 15 minutes left. I think we'll get through the whole thing, but I'll take a thought or a question if anybody has anything. I'll keep trucking here. So I want to talk about some sweet flowers to open up the heart, the emotions, the chest, the center of it all. Jasmine is long one of the great favorites in India and all through Southeast Asia into Indonesia, some of the biggest producers of jasmine, although we certainly see it growing around backyards of every continent, probably except Antarctica. And I think a lot about the whole history of spice trade all through Central Asia into Europe and how these oils participate in that long history. A lot of the great jasmine does come out of India still. Here's jasmine flowers being lifted out of the still after being distilled. The gathering of jasmine. Often done right before the sun rises. It's the traditional thing. People go out before dawn and in the first hours of the day. But by the time we're a little bit into the morning, the best gathering is spent. There are like large places where they just tell people, bring us your bags of jasmine flowers and we'll pay you a certain amount. And they don't even inspect it. They just throw it in there and distill it. And then there's family-run small places where they're actually really handpicking it with people they know and not just... There are places where you can literally drop off a bag of jasmine flowers and there could be twigs and leaves and the other plants that accidentally got gathered. And there's places that really put a lot of time and attention. And if the flower's a little bit bruised and not quite right, they won't throw it in there and they're producing sort of the top oils. Simbak jasmine is one of my favorites. I have that one right here. This is Peter's Simbak jasmine, which is so sensual and deep and soulful and heart-opening that I almost feel like ashamed to smell it without my face covered, because it's just, it's probably the most sensual of all of the great essential oils. And a good friend of it would be ylang ylang. People will say lang lang or why lang. The people who grow it tend to say ilang ilang. Although I don't want to bust on anyone for saying it wrong. It's also it grows on the beach, in a tree that grows right on the coastline. And similarly to jasmine, it's just this soulful heart, where lavender is sort of heart and head and top note. Jasmine and ylang ylang are sort of heart and base. And as such, they have this incredibly fruity, floral, soulful, sensual quality to them. While ylang ylang is native to Indonesia, those islands on the top right there, most of the production is now done in Madagascar. This is the ylang ylang flower. Here's people gathering it. This is Peter with the people who were gathering it earlier that day on his last trip to the people that produce it. These are the same people who were gathering flowers earlier in the day. And here's that same group where they're steam distilling really pure and well chosen, exactly what's in this bottle. So I want to talk about this point, pericardium 6. If you ever see C-bands in the drugstores that people use for nausea or motion sickness or in morning sickness and pregnancy, they wrap around. And just like spleen 6, you just kind of, where that was spleen 6 was that one right above the ankle bone in the middle of the leg. Pericardium 6 is just right in the middle of the wrist. And likewise, you can use the measurement of your body to find it. Usually 3 fingers on the wrist crease will allow the ring finger to fall right on the point. There's 2 tendons, palmaris longus and extensor carpi radialis. You don't need to know their names, but there's 2 big tendons right in the middle of the wrist, and the point is right between those tendons. But it is just right in the middle of the wrist, 3 finger widths in. It is where people most commonly tend to put a drop of an oil or even a perfume and rub them together. And that's a pretty big target. Like if you're sticking a needle in there, you want the bullseye. But this whole area is pretty awesome for placing the essential oils. And we say that this whole inner arm really goes into the heart and into the chest. So you could take an oil like I have the jasmine and the ylang ylang here and just drop it directly on the inner wrist Doesn't have to be a perfect hitter. Just kind of rub it around in a circle with your thumb or your fingers. I like to smell the oil and then close my eyes, take a moment. Just breathe. Smell the oil again, switch to the other wrist. It's a great way to regulate, a great way to chill out, a great way to open up. It's so simple, a drop of an oil on a really easy to find plant, and it really can shift our overall take on how we're feeling about life. Essential oils really do affect our consciousness. I want to give some reflections on the neurobiology of this. We smell an oil, it goes into our nose, and boom, it lights up a whole feeling and quality of awareness. The molecules of that plant, whether in its leaves or in its flower, I would even go so far as to say the essence or the spirit of the plant. And people do like to talk about them both from spirit and from biochemistry. I like to do both. Those molecules actually make contact with these little nerve fibers. Our olfactory bulb is how we smell. And as they hit those nerves, those amazingly sensitive nerves, the nerves are sensitive to the shapes of the molecules, and they send little botanical whispers moving through that nerve and into our brain. And amazingly, I just need to pause for a moment here because I get the chills every time I think about this. The olfactory nerve is the most superficial, at the surface level nerve in the whole body. It's actually exposed to open air. We have no other nerve in our body that's touching open air. And yet it goes straight from open air into the very deepest recesses of the center of our brain. We follow where that nerve travels. It goes into the limbic system, which influences memory, emotion, sexual feelings, spatial awareness, fear and safety, comfort, ease. All of our deepest core emotions are triggered by these deepest recesses of the brain. So you can see in green here at the bottom left, that olfactory bulb. I mean, you can see the little green parts of the brain that are connected to that. And the way we've learned about this over decades and decades of brain research is when people have brain injuries and parts of the brain get injured, we see where they get affected. People who get injuries to this limbic system in this midbrain, they get emotionally dysregulated, they get really fearful, they get over affectionate, they can't find the way to walk home again because they've lost spatial awareness, some of their deepest memories. That's why smells can bring us back to our childhood home like nothing else. Our connection to place, our connection to people, our connection to our deepest emotions comes from these, or at least is mediated by, I think it runs much deeper than the nerves. The nerves carry it. I mean, I think it lives in our spirits much deeper than just the neurobiology. But this neurobiology carries that spirit, is the way I like to think about it. And the oils affect that stuff. The olfactory bulb goes right into the midbrain. I can't say enough about that. And when we're feeling a little out of whack, which most of us get at least a light degree of every day, I carry the oils with me in my work, and I smell them most days multiple times. Just like you might have a cup of coffee or drink a glass of water or go for a walk or go for a run. It's so easy to throw a bottle or two of the oils into your pocket, into your bag, and throughout the day, take a moment, smell it, place it on a point, and we're in a whole new place. So we're coming up on the hour here. As promised, these are some of my favorite suppliers. I'll say a little bit about all four of them. At the top, we have Tisserand. This is out of England. Robert Tisserand was one of the early authors of books on aromatherapy, and this is his personal company. It's a little more of a deal buying, you have to buy it in pounds and convert it to dollars and all of this, but they're really quality oils. He's been, like Peter Holmes of Snow Lotus, Tisserand is a single person who is an author and a publisher and a healer who's been at it for decades and decades. He started Tisserand in the 70s. Peter started Snow Lotus in the 80s. So I love these two companies because they're started by individuals, one in California, one in England, who are really dedicated to the highest levels of the work. While I tend to get everything from Peter, I couldn't say that Tisserand is not equally awesome. It's just, Snow Lotus is in California and he's a friend. There's a lot of great oils all over the world, and there's a lot of mid-grade and a lot of awful ones too. So these two are both run by single people who are educators and authors, and as well as providers of the oils. The lower two are also have a few things in common. They're probably the most popular in the US these days, doTERRA and Young Living. My issue with them is that they're multi-level marketing, so they're always trying to get you to sell to other people. But they make really high quality oils, and I've constantly, I had a little chip on my shoulder because I'm not a big fan of the multi-level pyramid thing. But these are very high quality oils, and every time I get exposed to them, I've been studying them for 30 years, and I can smell when an oil is really awesome and when it's like, eh. And I'm continually quite impressed with doTERRA and Young Living, and they're really easy to access. They're a little more expensive than Snow Lotus, which is also easy to access, but I just can't turn my love of oils into a one-note band. I do tend to go back to Snow Lotus because I don't think I can beat their quality and their prices and their quality of commitment to supporting really small producers. doTERRA and Young Living do a lot of their own production. They grow a lot of plants themselves, and they do a lot of that very responsibly. Their prices tend to be a little higher, and their quality is just awesome. I've been really impressed with those. I continue to be given bottles of them and exposed to them, and I've gone from being skeptical just because it's pyramid marketing. And you can go on their websites and just buy directly from them. So, explore, get out there. There's lots of small producers. These are certainly not the only 4, but I just can't possibly do all of them. But these are 4 really great sources for quality therapeutic grade oils. Keep calm, learn about essential oils. Keep calm, and there's an oil for that. Keep calm and oil on. So I will stop sharing my screen and come online and see if there's any questions as we wrap up here.
Thank you. Wow. There's more to it. We could spend several more lessons on different plants and different points and different applications.
Absolutely. There's so much there.
Yeah. What about edible essential oils? What about putting oils in tea or food or?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, it's really important to have a quality oil to do that and to know what you're doing. I've noticed that doTERRA publishes a lot about recipes where you can add them to things. I put peppermint oil in my water a lot. I put lime oil in my water a lot. You can put rose oil and jasmine oil in your baking.
Are you saying 1 drop or 2 drops in water? I mean, what's the dosing?
Yeah, you usually water 2.
Yeah,
a glass size. 1 drop. I mean, the thing with the oils is they tend to all rise to the top, and it's hard to get it to really mix up nice. It's nice to put it in a water bottle that you can shake around. Although you've at that point kind of committed to that being your peppermint or your lime water bottle, because you're kind of never going to fully get it out. Absolutely. And the other thing that people do is they'll take a capsule and open it in half and put like 4 drops of, say, olive oil or almond oil, and then 1 drop of essential oil, and close the capsule, and then take that internally. People even use them as suppositories done that way. There's a lot of work that gets done with them.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yep. Like there's a lot that's been written about patchouli for hemorrhoids, and it does astringe the vasculature, and people make a little suppository out of that. I can't make healthcare recommendations as a teaching format, but I could just say that that's work that's out there. People are doing a lot of.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Friends, if you want to undo your video, show your radiant face, and say thanks to Charles, and offer up any questions, comments, or appreciations, that would be lovely. Here comes Christine Bauman.
Hey. Oh my goodness, nice to see you.
Great talk.
Have you been applying the oils, Chris? It looks like you're reclined.
Oh, I'm reclined.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
cool.
great.
Thank you to Peter Holmes for his work and for sharing his images with us. That's very special. He's presented at Bauman College for a 2-day program because there's so much information. It was 8 hours each for 2 days.
Yep, I've done lots of weekends with him like that over the years.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I tried to cover a lot of ground in 1 hour here.
You did. You did beautifully.
That was fun to share. It's a beautiful garden to play in, and there's endless layers of learning about each oil and each point and all the ways to play with them. No end.
So for those on the call, Charles is, let me make a commercial if I may. Oh, okay, Charles is leading a movement Qigong workshop at 10 o'clock Pacific on Tuesdays. So for the next 3 Tuesdays, highly recommended. Charles's, delivery and energy is just so fun and great. Just like with these oils, it's just so fun to now start playing with them in a new way and not just be heady about them. It's like, well, I read this is good for that. Well, it's okay. That gets you started, but then how you use it and how you connect with it and actually kind of take it in and let the oil just kind of really be part of who you are and how you are and how we're now part of nature. We're just alive in a rosemary bush. I mean, that's big stuff.
And you can't walk around with a rosemary bush in your pocket everywhere you go.
Yeah, a little.
It's nice to take a little bottle and
little dabble, do you?
Mm-hmm. Well, I just dropped a link in the chat with our workshop schedule, and there's information on how to register. So like Dr. B said, please come join us. It's a wonderful series.
Well, is it in the chat part?
Yeah, it's in the chat.
Yeah.
Chat part. Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, so far, they've all been amazing.
Oh, yeah. Well,
everyone that I've come to has just been amazing. And Charles did Qigong, and that was really fun. And he put it to preservation jazz.
That's right. Yeah.
And it was just really, actually, it was kind of a workout, actually.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was really nice. Yeah.
So next time, you have to dab some oil with your Qigong and let that kind of add to the whole ambiance.
Mm-hmm.
Can do.
Yeah, we can bring an oil into the Qigong. I actually do that a lot.
Yeah.
My computer just went on screensaver. Hang on.
So just for friends on the call, we're going to switch to Zoom next month for Lunch and Learns. Because this platform it's a little clunky, but I appreciate Powered by Action, and we'll have some workshops on Powered by Action, but our courses and our Lunch and Learns, we're going to back to Zoom format. So we'll let you know. We appreciate you attending and supporting Bauman Wellness and showing up in all ways and really spreading this gospel of natural health. I had a client today, and she was like so burdened down by medicines, and she was a natural health person who was 84 years old. And I kind of reminded her about, who she was and how she is and other things that she had forgotten. Because once she got a symptom and once she got an illness and once her numbers were skewing, it was just medical, which I understand. That's how doctors work, but it actually had created secondary and tertiary issues that she could now begin to address because this whole way of being is innate to her, and it's innate to many people. It just hasn't been really supported. That's why we're offering wellness education. And we are also happy to come to where you are. So locally or virtually, we can do this. And it's, it's just really special.
Yep.
Great respect and delight, Ed. It's amazing how you've always brought the healing to the people in the natural ways and with such community and such joy and such authenticity. It's delightful to join you again.
Oh, thank you, man. Well, it's so cool. So good afternoon, good Friday. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon. See you next week.